Hello, this is Sarah Braasch. Welcome back to my channel. So I wanted to do a series of videos about these new explosive emails from Yale, their internal Yale emails, and I didn't realize that I even had them. I only recently realized that I had these emails. They were emails that were sent by Yale's general counsel to my then attorney in the summer of 2018, and I had never read the emails until recently. And I know that might surprise some people. There's actually still details of what happened during the living or napping while black hate crime hoax at Yale that I'm actually still discovering because I haven't read everything. I haven't read everything because and I haven't watched everything, certainly. And the reason why is because it's just super traumatic and difficult for me to do so. It's really painful, very difficult. And I actually usually have to self-medicate a bit or more than a bit before I read some of this garbage and some of these disgusting lies that people told about me. So I want to introduce this series of videos that I'm going to do. And also I wanted to talk a little bit about one aspect of the new Yale emails. So I have created a blog post introducing the fact that it's two batches of emails. It's a lot. It's over 100 pages in total. And it's two batches of emails. And the first batch of email, pretty close to the beginning, on around page 5, there's a particular new email that I had never seen before that I feel is really explosive. And so I wrote the first blog post about that email. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that aspect of the new emails. And the blog post is also about that. And so I'll do a series of blog posts, I'll do a series of YouTube videos. So the first aspect I want to talk about, so all of these emails, and in particular the new internal Yale emails that I didn't even realize that I had, and I have in the blog post that I already created, I posted 2 links to the PDFs, the 2D PDFs, which comprise the entirety of this huge batch of emails. So all of the emails I feel prove, absolutely 100% prove, that the Yale administration and police told disgusting lies about me, that they lied about everything having to do with the living or napping while black hate crime hoax at Yale. All of their public statements following May 8, 2018 were just disgusting, bald-faced lies about me, meant to destroy and endanger my life and lifelong human and civil rights, academic, and legal careers. There's just not a doubt in my mind that these emails prove that. And I also feel very strongly that these emails prove that Yale campus police chief Vernell Higgins perjured himself at the Connecticut Freedom of Information Act Commission hearing on November 4th, 2019 in downtown Hartford, Connecticut. He absolutely perjured himself. He lied. He straight up lied. I think the next YouTube video that I do will be about that aspect of these new explosive Yale emails that I've already released to the public, made public. So the aspect that I want to talk about today is the involvement and complicity, what I feel very strongly was the involvement and complicity of the resident coordinators of the Hall of Graduate Studies, which was my Yale dormitory where I lived on the 12th floor of the tower of the Hall of Graduate Studies. So the resident coordinators, I've usually heard them referred to at other campuses as the resident assistants. They're students who live in the dorm, but they get paid in some manner, one form or another, to be a liaison between Yale housing and the students who live there, to help resolve any, issues that arise for the students. And they usually are responsible for, some kind of social programming, cultural programming, usually responsible in some respect for safety, getting people out if there's a fire alarm, etc., that sort of thing. So these were the resident coordinators of the Hall of Graduate Studies. Now, as I've already explained repeatedly, the incipient event that kicked off the whole living or napping while black hate crime hoax at Yale was an incident that took place on February 24th, 2018, which was a Saturday evening. So to make a long story short, in a nutshell, a strange man followed me into the elevator, followed me up to the 12th floor in violation of Yale housing regulations. I made an effort to avoid a confrontation with him, but ultimately, he confronted me, and then I didn't want to be rude, so I spoke with him. I felt uncomfortable, and I told him that I was uncomfortable because he had gained unauthorized access to the 12th floor of the tower of the Hall of Graduate Studies, the Yale dormitory where I lived. My room was the only room, the only dorm room on the 12th floor of the tower, the only other room on the 12th floor of the tower being the misnamed 12th floor common room, which was rarely used. I made the decision, the fateful decision, now it would seem, to go ahead and call the non-emergency helpline of the Yale campus police, as I had been repeatedly instructed to do for any reason whatsoever by the Yale police and by the Yale administration. And then what ended up happening is that I don't believe that the Yale campus police ever actually made it up to the 12th floor of the tower of the Hall of Graduate Studies. So an event began sometime thereafter in the misnamed 12th floor common room, and then sometime thereafter, shortly thereafter, I was being harassed in my room. People were screaming and yelling, mocking comments and obscenities through my door into my room. So I, of course, didn't want to call the Yale campus police again because that was obviously what they seemed to be upset about. So I sent an email. I sent an email to the two resident coordinators or resident assistants of the Hall of Graduate Studies. And I explained everything that had happened, and I explained that I was being harassed. I was still being harassed when I sent the email. So I didn't get an email back from them until hours later, about 4 hours later, after 10 p.m. that evening. And the email was very accusatory, insinuated that I had done something wrong, and basically was saying that I needed to come to some meeting the next week on Thursday and explain myself, basically. And in the email, the two resident coordinators made clear that they had spoken with everyone involved, including the Yale campus police officers, who had said that they were going to come speak to me but never did. No one came to speak to me. And then they had also spoken with both the resident who was holding this event in the 12th floor common room and the man whom I had encountered, who had been invited by this resident. So they'd spoken with everyone but me. No one spoke to me. So Beth Bishop, the Yale housing manager, intervened at that point and said, please come speak to us on Monday. So I went into the Yale housing office on Monday to speak with Beth Bishop and Kate St. Marie, two Yale housing managers. And at that time, they both told me that I had done absolutely nothing wrong, that I was the only person involved who had done nothing wrong. They told me that they would deal with all of the other students involved, including the students who harassed me. They told me that they were very upset with the way that the resident coordinators had handled the situation and had treated me, and that the resident coordinators of the Hall of Graduate Studies Grant Mandagora and Esther Sosa would be reprimanded for their behavior on Saturday, February 24th, 2018. And then they also, they basically just told me, oh, Beth Bishop also told me that she would be very happy to close the 12th floor common room for the rest of the year. The Hall of Graduate Studies was going to close at the end of the academic year, and she said she would be more than happy to just close the 12th floor common room for the rest of the year if it was a problem. And basically they just told me to go back to my dissertation, not give the what had happened on Saturday another thought, and just go on with my life, that they would take care of everything. I was perfectly happy to agree to this, and I told them that I had absolutely no desire to get anyone in trouble or to ruin anyone's life, and I was perfectly happy just to let everything go, and that the only thing I wanted was to be left alone and in peace to complete my dissertation, which I consider to be my Saving the World project. So that was that as far as I was concerned. So what I really wanted to discuss tonight in this YouTube video, which is one of the new emails that I consider to be quite explosive, that's in this PDF that I've linked to in my blog post, and I will put my blog post below in the information box, including the link to the PDF of the emails, is that I have an internal email sent by the resident coordinators on Saturday evening after they had finally responded to me after 10 p.m., after Beth Bishop intervened and asked me to come in and meet with her on that Monday, February 26th, 2018. And so at 10:43 p.m., the two resident coordinators sent an email to Beth Bishop and Kate St. Marie, the two Yale housing managers. So this was on that Saturday evening after I had been harassed, after I had had the confrontation with the man who ended up being Jean-Louis Renison. So in this email, the two resident coordinators make very clear, even though they had never spoken to me, that they considered me to be the wrongdoer, that they considered me to be the problem, that I had done something wrong. So they start off this email by saying that they didn't get a chance to speak with me, which is just a bald-faced lie, because I was in my room. I had actually been afraid to leave my room, obviously, because people were yelling what I construed as threatening, messages through my door from outside, right outside my door. So I had been in my room the entire time, all of those hours. So they had basically 4 hours. They could have come and knocked on my door to speak with me at any time. They never did. So it's just a straight up lie that they didn't get a chance to speak with me. So they spoke with everyone but me. Then next, what they say to the two Yale housing managers, Kate St. Marie and Beth Bishop, is they say, this isn't the first time that Sarah has been involved in something like this. And they say that they don't want to meet with me alone, that they only want to meet with me if Kate St. Marie and Beth Bishop are also there. Now, this is very, very important and very explosive. The reason why is because, I have been saying that I believed very strongly that the resident coordinators of the Hall of Graduate Studies, Grant Mandagora and Esther Sosa, were complicit in the Living or Napping While Black hate crime hoax. And I feel that these new emails, these new internal Yale emails, strongly corroborate that claim. They were very upset. They were upset with me. And I actually believe that they were friends with Lolata Siambola and Jean-Louis Renison. I actually now believe that they may have been present that evening in the 12th floor common room for this event that was hosted by Lolata Siambola on Saturday, February 24th, 2018. And I actually believe at this point that they may have participated in the harassment that I suffered on that evening. And I think that the reason why they waited 4 hours to respond to my email is because, and they never came to speak with me, is because they were using that time to make a plan as to how to deflect from the harassment that I had experienced. And I think that they made a decision with Lola Ciambola and Jean-Louis Renison to accuse me of racism, to falsely accuse me of racism, to deflect from the fact that that I was the one who was harassed that evening. I do now believe that that's what happened. I do. I absolutely do. So now this statement that they made about this wasn't the first time Sarah's been involved with something like this. And I believe that that is referring to the fact that I was widely known and despised on campus as an anti-LGBTQ bigot, which is completely ludicrous. I've never been anything but pro-LGBTQ rights. I have 2 surrogate dads. I am a lifelong human and civil rights activist. I currently do pro bono legal work for the trans community, helping them change their names and their gender markers on official documents. I taught the Prop 8 federal and Supreme Court cases when I taught philosophy of law at San Francisco State University. So I've never been anything but pro LGBTQ rights, and so it's completely ludicrous that this happened to me. But the reason why it happened, which I've spoken about at length, is that in the spring of 2015, my first year in the PhD program in philosophy at Yale, I stood up for the federal civil rights of an evangelical Black man. He was the only person of color job candidate for a tenure track assistant professor position in the Yale philosophy department. And I've already, discussed this at length. And I have other YouTube videos about this. But basically, I stood up for his religious expression rights, for his freedom of expression rights. And for this, I was socially ostracized by most of the other graduate students in the department, treated like a leper. And I was told ultimately that they had gone to the administration to try to get me disciplined and even expelled. And that the reason why that hadn't happened is because the faculty stood up for me. And actually 2 of the character letters that were written on my behalf by Jason Stanley and Zoltan Szabo corroborate and confirm my claims about what occurred in the spring of 2015. So I think that the other graduate students at that time were very upset that they hadn't been able to get me disciplined or expelled, and they weren't satisfied with having socially ousted me from the philosophy department. So the Yale community is a very insular, tight-knit community, and gossip spreads like wildfire across campus. It's a very odd little place in that regard. And so I think that they went out of their way to make it as widely known as they possibly could that I was this anti-LGBTQ bigot, that I was this horrible person, and that I was to be treated as such. So I believe that the 2 resident coordinators of the Hall of Graduate Studies, in this email on February 24th, 2018, when they say this is not the first time that Sarah's been involved in an incident like this, I believe they're referring to bigotry, and I believe they're referring to the spring 2015 incident, and I believe they are referring to my notoriety as an anti-LGBTQ bigot on Yale's campus because I stood up for the federal civil rights of an evangelical Black man on campus. So I think that's a very important point. And I think that they're also making that statement in that email because, again, they're trying to deflect from the fact that I was the person who was actually harassed that evening. So they're trying to bolster their false accusation of racism by saying, oh, look, this is someone who's, exhibited bigotry in the past. So, of course, she's being a bigot again tonight. She's being a racist. So then in this email, they go on to say that the other students involved, and I think primarily meaning Lolata Ciambola and Jean-Louis Renison, are really terribly aggrieved by what has happened. They're very upset. And then they say that, they want to make sure, they want to bring this to the attention of the Yale Housing Office, and they want to meet with the Yale housing managers. So this is a very important and explosive email, and I feel very strongly that this email corroborates so many of my claims, so much of what I've said. I believe that the first phase of the harassment that I experienced, which actually began, I believe now on March 1st, so just a number of days thereafter, was and then went up until approximately April 6th, when I really put my foot down with Provost Stephanie Spangler and Associate Provost Cynthia Smith. And what that was the two resident coordinators going out of their way to book raucous late night party after party after party that would trash the 12th floor common room way past quiet hours, and would leave garbage everywhere, garbage that would reek to high heaven, all over the stairwell, all over the hallway, all over the room. And so ultimately that was what I consider to be the first phase of the harassment that I endured. And it was so interesting the way everything turned. During that week from February 24th, 2018, which was that Saturday when I experienced that harassment. I had the confrontation with Jean-Louis Renison, up until the meeting with George Longyear, the Yale housing director, and also Grant Mandagora, the one resident coordinator, was present on Friday, March 2nd, when he let me know that I had been accused of racism, and that I was also being accused of racism by a group of Yale deans. So it was so interesting the way it went. Everything turned 180. When I met on Monday with Kate St. Marie and Beth Bishop, Beth said, "I will close that 12th floor common room." Then, then after actually, when I spoke with George Longyear, I said very explicitly that the common room is a problem, and that I was actually, upset that even after what had happened the past weekend, the two resident coordinators booked a raucous, late night party in the common room the night before, on the Thursday, March 1st. And I now subsequently realized, well, that was the beginning of the first phase of that harassment, which was the resident coordinators booking all of these raucous parties in that room. So after I had that meeting with George Longyear, I basically in emails was saying, and some of these emails I think are in this batch too, saying, I really would like the 12th floor common room, if we can't just close it outright, I'd like it to be closed to, parties. And then Grant Mandagora and Esther Souza, the two resident coordinators, now see themselves as being in control. And they're the ones that send me an email that say, "Yeah, sorry, we're not closing the 12th floor common room." Even though that was basically the first thing that Beth Bishop said to me is, "If that room is a problem, I will close it like that," she said, and she snapped her fingers. So things just took this 180-degree turn, and I think what it really hinged on was the fact that, please know, and I didn't realize this at the time, of course, I didn't see it until the end of June 2018, after Yale Graduate School Dean Lynn Cooley falsely charged me with racial harassment at the beginning of June 2018, on June 5th. And I didn't know, no one would tell me. No one would even tell me what it was that I had said or done that was racist on February 24th, 2018. Of course, I did nothing. I did and said nothing that was racist. But I think what happened and why everything took this 180-degree turn, and I was suddenly being villainized, and the two resident coordinators decided that they were the ones that were in control. And I believe that they were very angry with me because I believe that they felt like I had gotten them into trouble, so to speak, with the two Yale housing managers, Beth Bishop and Kate St. Marie. So they weren't going to stand for that. So Lolata Ciambola and Jean-Louis Renison, at some point during that week, they wrote a letter. They wrote a letter to Graduate School Diversity Dean and Title IX Coordinator Michelle Nearin. And I've posted this letter publicly as well. And I have YouTube videos about it and blog posts. But basically in this letter, they falsely accused me of having perpetrated a racist hate crime comparable to a lynching. Comparable to a lynching. And so these Yale deans then got very excited about this. What's also interesting about these new explosive emails that I've posted is that when I met with George Longyear, the Yale housing director, on Friday, March 2nd, 2018, he told me that they wrote, that Lolata Ciambola and Jean-Louis Renison wrote that letter to Graduate School Diversity Dean Michelle Nearin. Now, the letter, when I actually got it from Yale, from the Yale administration, at the end of June 2018, when I was finally told what it was that I had supposedly done that was racist on February 24th, 2018, the letter is addressed to George Longyear, the Yale housing director. So I believe now that that letter was modified after the fact to try to protect Graduate School Diversity Dean Michelle Nearin and the entire Yale administration from legal liability. I believe so. I'll talk more about that later, but that's an important point. So I feel very strongly that this particular email is really explosive. I feel like it corroborates a lot of the claims that I've made about my strong belief that the resident coordinators, Grant Mendigore and Esther Sosa, were complicit in the Living or Napping While Black hate crime hoax at Yale, and that they instigated a lot of the harassment and that I endured during the spring semester of 2018 at Yale. I believe they had a big hand to play in the hellish nightmare that I've endured and barely survived. Yeah. And I think that email in particular, which is in this PDF that I linked to in my blog post and have made publicly available now, corroborates basically all of the claims that I've made. I think all the emails, and there are other emails, there are even other emails that I have that and I'm just going to release absolutely everything. I just want it out in the open. I want it out in the public eye. I just want the truth out there. I just want the public to know the truth. The Yale administration and the Yale police were complicit in the Living or Napping While Black hate crime hoax at Yale. They told disgusting lies about me that endangered and destroyed my life and lifelong human and civil rights, academic and legal careers, and they didn't care. They did not care. I believe that they were actually hoping, intending for me to die, probably by committing suicide, in order to cover up their own wrongdoing, their gross malfeasance, their violations of my federal civil rights. So I think I'll stop there for now. So I'll have links to everything below, including my PayPal me and GoFundMe links. Please support me. Please help me sue Yale. This is not just about me. It's about restoring civil liberties on college campuses across the U.S. and everywhere. And it's about stopping the moral outrage industry from getting one more innocent person killed. Okay, I love you all so much. Thank you so much for everything, your support, your kind words. You're saving my life. You're saving my life. We are going to get through this moment of mass cultural insanity together. I promise you. Okay, I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for everything. Take care of yourselves. Be safe and healthy. Stay safe. Stay healthy during this pandemic, okay? We're going to get through this. We will get through this. We will. Okay, I will talk to you all soon. Bye.